I'm like, you're banning the first one, but there's like so much gay stuff in the other two books. And they
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Beckoning Brilliance. I'm your host, Becca Booka, and today's guest is Madeleine Roux. She's the New York Times and USA Today bestselling author of the Asylum series, which has sold over 1 million copies worldwide. She's also the author of the House of Fury series and several titles for adults, including Salvage and Reclaimed. She's made contributions to Star Wars, World of Warcraft, and Dungeons and Dragons. I have known her for most of my life, and she has kindly joined us today to talk about the ins and outs of the publishing industry, book banning, the importance of sticking up for yourself, body image. We talk about a lot of things. So it's a great conversation. I'm really excited for you guys to hear it. Without further ado, Madeleine Roux.
Hi, I'm here.
How are you?
You know what? I'm hanging in there. I'm living. I'm
Great.
You know, I don't try to lie anymore when people ask. So
I appreciate that.
I'm in my rebuild era right now, so it's it's up and down, but I'm here and I'm ready to talk.
Tell me more. What do you mean about your rebuild era?
This has been a year of a lot of tough shit falling in my lap. And, I've had the good fortune of, I've had ups and downs, I've had traumatic things happen, but never sort of like back to back to back to back in a way where it just feels like, oh, I have to get so on top of my mental health, my emotional health, my career health, or I just don't think I can really like survive this and be there for the people I need to be there for and continue doing my job. So I lost my brother this year, which was like, a punch in the face. And it's just, that brings up so much stuff you don't expect. Not just the pure sadness of losing a person you love, but the way it sort of unravels family dynamics, the way it sort of makes you look really hard at yourself and your own mental health and your own life and what you've accomplished and what you haven't accomplished and what you prioritize. So yeah, I've just had to sort of slow down, and then that cascadingly made my job very difficult. I'm a writer, so I have to be creative every time I sit down to work, and that I think requires an openness and a sensitivity that, if you're grieving, it's really hard to sort of set that aside and be like, oh, I have to write this like goofy kids book, right? You're just like, all I want to talk about is really intense stuff, right? So yeah, it's been a learning process to be like, how do I, get on this journey to, being in a better place, and how do I also continue to like, meet my responsibilities. I'm not necessarily doing a great job at either one of those things, but I'm showing up. So
well, hey, that is doing your best some days, just showing up. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm so sorry about your brother, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, I shaved my head. I just sort of, I described it to one of my therapists as like stripping it back to the studs, sort of, right? Just let's go back to the absolute beginning and see what needs shoring up across the board, right? And I've listened to some of your episodes, and I know you are a recovering people pleaser, and
I am.
so am I. And so I've had to look really, really hard at that too, right? Of like, I have such a hard time putting myself first, and this has been a time where that is so crucial. Like it's almost like you don't have a choice at a certain point. I've been put in a position where if I don't prioritize what I need right now, I don't even, I don't know. I don't know what the alternative would be. So
Yeah. That's interesting because I would never, if someone were to ask me how to describe you, people pleaser would not be the first thing off the top of my head.
Um, it's in a way that is very much part of how I was raised, which is that, how do people perceive you? Are you perceived as competent, good at what you do, tough, resilient, accomplishments, that sort of thing, sort of that like gifted and talented mental illness of always having to overachieve and achieve and achieve. And it's something I'm proud of, how much work I've
Mhm.
published, but it's also a cry for help in a lot of ways. So um yeah, I mean, like to say when I'm 37, I have 20 books out. It's like that's not a well person. That's not a well person who does that. So it's like you just have to be realistic at a certain point and say, how much have I used this job to sort of hide, problems, hide feelings that I'm not dealing with, hide, parts of myself that I need to examine.
That's interesting because literally, like, all my questions were like, "This is incredible! You've written 20 books."
No, and it's a no, and I'm proud of it. Like I'm don't get me wrong, I'm super fucking proud of
Mhm,
it. It's not that. It's not a bad thing that I did it, right? It's just evidence. Like it's
mhm.
just evidence. It's just data at a certain point. So, yeah, I'm in a point now where I need to slow down, right? Because when things are going really well, it's easy to sort of throw yourself into a career like
Yeah.
that and like lose track of a lot of
Mhm.
things. But then when shit hits the fan, you're like, oh, I can't keep going at this pace, right? Like I've established this as how I work, but now I'm seeing that it's not sustainable. And in a lot of ways, I think it's inevitable that you hit the wall, when you are just a burnout type of person, just someone who kind of, loses themselves in their work. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's been a long time since I've written anything, but I guess it's interesting for me to think about you using writing as like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I always think of writing as being like kind of therapeutic, like getting all of your emotions out. But with all the writing that you do, it's like you are kind of like tapping into these different characters and like different worlds and creating these different worlds. So uh, are you looking at it as kind of like an unhealthy escape?
no, I don't think it's unhealthy. I think it is very therapeutic in a lot of ways. I've taken a lot of the bad things that have happened to me and re-examined them and done a lot of healing through my books, and I think that's great. And I actually think it's like, I think I need to do more of that, right? I think at a certain point I sort of just started to do anything that came to mind instead of focusing in on like, okay, what do I like really want to be
Hmm.
saying right now? And again, that's not bad. Like I'm not trying I'm proud of all of my books. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's more that you just are taking on so much, so much, so much, saying yes to every project, spreading yourself really
Hmm.
thin. I think you just sort of, you're giving yourself over to a career instead of also like giving yourself over to your life. And I want those things to coexist in a balance, and I'm not sure they always have. So I think I need to do a lot more of that therapy, like outside of outside of my books, right? A lot more of just like, okay, how are we going to deal with this, here now, not find some kind of way to sort of like silver lining it
Hmm.
and be like, oh, what if I turn this into something? It doesn't always have to be like that, right? Something can just be bad and then you deal with it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, but and then I turned it into, a novel. So
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask you. I'm like, have you ever pulled like a Taylor Swift and like go through like a shitty breakup, and you're like, all right, fuck it, like this person is gonna be the
oh,
yeah,
100%.
cool.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna be the
Yeah.
villain in my next book, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's that's a standing threat for all people in my life.
Good, I love it.
I've definitely done it. I've done it repeatedly.
No one's safe.
No one's safe. I am very careful about masking their identity. It's not it's because it isn't like a, I never want to like publicly put someone on blast in a book that
Mhm.
way. It's that's just to me not really cool. But yeah, no, I've definitely used people that have wronged me as villains, even if it's just down to like the way they're, the description, right, the physical description.
Mhm.
Sometimes that just feels like a nice little petty way to, a harmless way to get back at someone, for sure. For
And you're
sure.
like, hey, I'm making money off of talking shit about you. Even
Yeah,
better.
big time. Yeah, it's always fun when that book does well too and you're like, yes, that's just it's even better. It's such a like private kind of glee, right? When you're just, I know, and they don't
Yeah.
know. So
Going back to okay, you talking about spreading yourself too thin and someone that has written 20 books, like that's not, you're not well. I guess I have no concept of how long it even takes to write a book. And just in the like the publishing industry in general, I don't know why, but I keep on
Sure.
mentally comparing it to like the music industry. So is it kind of the same
Mm.
idea where like if you're hot, like if you're kind of on top of everything, obviously you're a New York Times bestselling author. Do you feel that pressure to kind of like, capture that lightning in a bottle and like keep up with that momentum so you can stay popular or
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure to how do I say this? So the way it is very similar, and the way that I would compare it, and the way I've compared it in the past is something like, I'm really into Lady Gaga's like early stuff.
mm,
I love her dance music. That's like where I live with her. I love that. And then she sort of changed it up and went in a totally different direction, right? Most artists do. Most artists will not stay in a phase forever. And I remember when that happened. This was, years and years and years ago, and I was not as self-aware. I was like, what is this? What the hell are you doing? This is awful. Like, go do the other stuff. Do the stuff I
why are
like.
you
What's
evolving?
wrong with you? Right. Why do you get to choose what your art looks
Yeah.
like? And and now when that happens for me with a musical artist, I'm like, oh, okay, like live your life.
Mm,
That I won't be participating in this era of your work, but I wish you the best. I understand now because it's a very similar pressure of like you became known for this type of book. We truly what we really want is for you to just reproduce this same book with minor deviations for the rest of your
mm,
life. And people will say that to a more direct and less direct degree, right? Of sort of, I don't know what, like, why don't you just keep doing this series forever? Or why don't you, go back to doing this, like, very, very, very specific genre
mm,
direction? And for me, that's just not who I am. I've always had a lot of different interests. I've always read really widely. I'm much more interested in ideas rather than genre sometimes. So, it's tough because I did feel a lot of pressure to do that. That not so much anymore right now. I've sort of decided like it's just enough to keep going. It's just enough. Sometimes you look around and you're like, oh man, you're like all those people I went on tour with, like 10 years ago, like they all stopped. they all stopped, or like they sort of switch gears with their life or their career. So I now have come around to the idea that it's just enough to keep going and to have the stamina to like survive this industry. But yes, it is very similar in that, you sort of become known as a horror person, and then that's what people want from
yeah.
you forever. And that's not all I am. That's not all I'm interested in. I always will probably publish a horror book every once in a while, but like there's a lot of other stuff I want to do. So yeah, the length of how long it takes, it could completely vary, right? I've written books in 2 or 3 weeks, and I've written books that take 2 years, right? Like it just doesn't. It just could be whatever. It really varies, and I tend to work very quickly. That's just something. Or in the past, I did. Now I'm starting to slow down. I'm running into that sustainability thing,
Yeah.
but yeah. So it is very similar in that when you have like a public facing, and I'm sure you even have experienced the same thing in your line of work, which is like, no, do this style of makeup, do this style of hair. Why would you ever deviate? Why, if you're good at something, why would you ever try something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's great for the customer. It's truly not great for the artist.
Whenever someone asks me for some ugly shit, I try to educate them why. I'm like, okay, this is a bad idea because, and I'll explain it to them. And if they still insist, I'm like, look, I'll give you your chalky blue eyeshadow, but tell everyone my name's Tiffany. Like, I'm not, don't
Right.
tag me in this shit because, like,
Yeah, do
I
not.
don't want my name on this.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, and it's just it's one of those things that's even very difficult to talk about because immediately I start to feel like this pressure to also be grateful all the time and to
Yeah.
always to never complain and to never say that there are bad sides to this job because there are so many people who want to do it, and I appreciate that. I am very aware of how lucky I am to do this
Yeah.
job, but it's also delusional and ridiculous to think that there's no downsides, right? I mean, it's just not real life. It's just not reality, right? So
Yeah. On that kind of topic. So, as I started researching you, so we didn't even talk about our history. So I've known you since, well, over 20 years. I've known you since middle
Babies.
school when we were
Yeah.
children. Um,
Babies.
but I was gonna say, so is I've always known you to be a really outspoken person. And so obviously we've been friends on social media. So I've always kind of had a pulse on what's going on in your life. But I figured I should, do a little bit more in-depth research to, not ask you totally idiotic questions. And once I started researching you, I started seeing, some comments about you that I was like, what the fuck is this? And so I
Mm.
started Googling, and there seems to have been like some scandal. Like, I know you had one of your books banned in Oklahoma, and like, I can't even imagine what that must feel like to, especially after everything you just told me. It's like, you always have been a really good writer, and it seems like you've always found such joy in it. So to get to this level of success and to now have people like try to knock you down and say what you're doing is shitty, and like even coming after you like as a person, like how the fuck do you deal
Yeah.
with that, and like how do you still find joy in your job?
It's really interesting because like I just said, it's so much of even just this career is just not getting just staying standing up, right? Just continuing because bad reviews are tough on their own. I'm much better now at understanding how to regulate that sort of stuff. But when you're first getting started, it's very difficult not to get sucked into what people are saying about
Mhm.
you. And when you at first I was staying in a lane where I was kind of physically and socially the majority. Young adult publishing is full of cis women, gay and straight and queer, oh, whatever, all over the spectrum. And so when you start in sort of a lane where a lot of the people look like you're not really an anomaly in any sense. I sort of became very safe and comfortable in that space, which is good, right? It speaks highly that YA, I mean, it also is one of the most diverse generally, which is incredible, but you're dealing with teenagers, you're dealing with teenagers who are honestly like pretty with it and very accepting. They're being raised in a generation that is a lot more welcoming, a lot more open-minded. So the worst kind of comments you're getting are like, I thought your book was dumb. You're like, okay, you're 12. Like, cool, I'm sorry, but like, it's pretty harmless. It's pretty easy to shake that stuff off. But the more I did this and the more established I got, you know I got invited into other spaces, and those were spaces that do not look like me. By and large, they are full of sort of an old guard of cis white men. And those spaces are changing, thank God, but it's slow. And any kind of change in any place always creates backlash. It always creates turmoil and tension. So, yeah, when you show up and you start publishing in nerd spaces and you look like me and you talk like
Mhm.
me and you have my political leanings, you will be punished. It's just the truth. You're just going to be punished, and it just becomes a matter of, can you withstand the harassment and the bullying long enough to stay, or will you get scared off? And I want to say, by the way, that and it's bad for me. If you're like a queer black woman, forget it, right? I mean, the shit that they have to put up with when they are writing for Star Wars, video games, whatever. It's pretty unimaginable and constant. So I want to say, like, if you do get scared away, there is no shame in that, because it's also okay to say, I don't accept this.
Mhm.
I don't want to be called these things, threatened this way. I don't want that, so I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
that's a totally legitimate
Mhm.
response. And you have to do what's right for you at the end of the day. And I considered it too, right? There's a certain point when your inbox is just full of death threats that you're like, do I care this
Yeah.
much? Do I like, is this worth it?
Mhm.
Do I want to do this? And then, it cools down and you think about it and you go to a lot of therapy, and you just see that, this is what it takes. This is what it takes to be a person that is queer and feminist and does the work of anti-racism and cares about those things, this is what it requires. And I don't think I would be, it would not sit right on my spirit personally to fucking tuck my tail and run, because I believe in these things. I will always stand for justice and equality. And if all it takes is some fucking racist in Oklahoma telling me to get back in the kitchen, then like I didn't believe in this in the first place, you know? So when the shit hits the fan and when it gets hot, like, are you there or are you not? And, you know, when you go to marches, white people to the front. You know, it's like the cops are going to have a lot harder time spraying you with whatever and flashbanging you. You know, it's like if you like you have to be willing to put yourself in the line of fire at a certain point when you really believe in something. So yeah, that's that's that on that. No, I mean, it's, you know, it's dark shit,
Yeah.
and it's like it's ongoing, but it's something that I believe so strongly in. Like I believe so strongly in putting characters in my books that a little queer kid can look at and be like, I recognize
Mm-hmm.
that. That makes me feel safe. Like the best thing I could do is have a kid open my books and be like, I'm safe here. Like there's not going to be jokes about, you know, queer kids. It's not going to make me feel uncomfortable. It's going to make me feel like I belong. It's going to make me feel
Mm-hmm.
welcome. And I believe that in all my books, right? In every genre and every age range. But like, yeah, when you find out someone's trying to ban your book, it sucks. It really sucks. And you know, you get a lot of sort of Facebook moms being like, oh, go you, and like that's just so cool. Isn't that so cool? That means you're like, you know, oh, the bad people hate you. And you're like, ma'am, it's also my income. Like it's also my ability to keep doing this job. And that's like just to me one of the most kind of living room activist responses you can have to book banning, is that it just shows you that you're like pissing off the right people. It's like, well, those people legislate and those people deny children access to books. And it's not a coincidence that they're coming after YA first. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a coincidence that where teenage girls spend most of their time is the thing that gets hit first. Because who always gets made fun of first? Young women.
Yeah.
So it's not a coincidence that they're coming after, you know, a lot of books in YA, a lot of children's books, because it's something that adults feel very removed from.
Mm-hmm.
They're not coming for the books you want to read yet, but they will. They will. They're testing it out with this. They always start with the kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's very easy to say, like, oh, think of the children. Do you really want them to read a book that's called, like, My Two Mommies? Well, I don't know. They're reading a book called Everyone Poops. So, like,
Why did your book get
just
banned in the first place?
you know, it's that's actually a very good question, and it shows you sort of the stupidity of this movement in general. Because so the one they tend to go for the most is House of Furies, which is the first in a
Mm-hmm.
series, and it actually involves a lot of like it's all about myth making, and there are like representatives of like Christian faith of that mythos in the book. And the devil is a prominent character in the book.
Okay.
He is not represented particularly sympathetically. Like, it's just proof that no one read it, right? They just saw that the devil was in it and they're like, oh, we got to get rid of
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, you're banning the first one, but there's like so much gay stuff in the other two books. And they and like if you're a Christo fascist, there's so much more catnip for you in the other two books, which just shows you that they're like, this is just nonsense. It's just
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. It's like the first one is probably the mildest of all three, but this is the
I won't
one.
tell anyone.
Oh, whatever, let them find it. I mean, like, but that it doesn't matter. They won't listen. They don't do their research. That's not what this is
Mm-hmm.
about. They can just say the devil's in it,
Yeah.
and some suburban mom is gonna shit her pants, right? So, and feel like, oh, I have to protect my child from this. It's just it doesn't, it's so meaningless, it's so arbitrary, right? Which is like all of my young adult books have queer content in
Mm-hmm.
them, all of
Yeah.
them, but you're going after the one that has the devil in it. Okay.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. Right. It doesn't. And that's why, this is why when I sound the alarm bell on this stuff to people, I really mean it, because they're just testing it out. You test out this stuff with kids, and like, look at what's happening in Florida. You test out removing certain subjects from school. Oh, but just the kids, just for the kids. Oh no, now it's for high schoolers. Oh no, now it's also for
Mm-hmm.
college, right? Like, you just start moving it a little, a little, a little, a little. So it's very hard to get most people to give a shit about what's happening in young adult publishing, but like, it is the canary in the coal mine here, kids. Like, this is how it starts. This is how it begins. You go after people that no one really wants to like think about too. You're like, oh, does that teenage girl really need that book? Whatever. She can read something more appropriate.
Yeah.
Bet she didn't think we were gonna go here.
No, I was like laughing because all my questions are like light and fluffy. I'm like, oh,
Oh no, we can do the
no,
light
no,
fluffy
no, no.
stuff too.
I just didn't even know if you were gonna be like open to talking about this. So I kind of figured
No,
that.
absolutely. I mean,
No, I think it's.
it
I think yeah, I
matters.
was gonna say I
Yeah,
think it's important for sure. I didn't know if you're gonna
it
be open to
matters.
talking
Yeah.
about it. So I.
No, of course it's and that's why I do like talking about this stuff,
Mhm.
because again, people think that when you do this job, it's all sunshine and rainbows and being whisked away on book tours and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's truly not. A lot of it is facing an evolving political landscape where it is scary to publish books that matter to you, right? That say things that matter.
Mhm.
And no art is apolitical. So like,
Yeah.
I just like, if you're gonna get into this job, if you want to be a writer, if you want to be an artist, if you want to make movies, like, it's all political.
Yeah.
So
I that's even after researching you and like seeing all this stuff, I still didn't like put that together as it being a political thing and like how that's a lot of pressure on you. Then do you get any like kickback from like your publishers about what you should be writing, and do they make you edit anything out, or do they give you freedom?
no, I don't run into a lot of like pushback. It really depends, right? I mean, I've worked with a lot of different publishers. I've worked with a lot of different editors. By and large, no, I don't really get that, because right, they know who. And by this point, it's
Yeah.
pretty. They know who I am, so they know what they're gonna
Hmm.
get, more or less. There's definitely smaller stuff like, can I use this word? Is that like, can I swear
Yeah.
here? Can I, right? Like, with YA, like, there's actual like things you have to think about in that sense, almost like a very technical level, in the way that like a PG-13 movie can only have a fuck word or whatever. So there's very like bland, mundane things like
Hmm.
that. It's very rare. I mean, I've definitely, like, I write horror for adults too, and there's a scene in one of my sci-fi books where, I guess this is kind of a spoiler, but I'll be vague. Where like the villain is just like fucking a headless robot, and
Oh.
the protagonist like stumbles upon it, and I remember that editor being like, does this have to be here? And I was like, 100% yes. It is the most iconic part of the book. It absolutely, I mean, and it also thematically is very important. I know that's probably sounds like a stretch, but it is. So yeah, no, like, there are times when you want to put something in that's pretty like dark or confronting, and they'll be like,
Do you ever have like well, I don't know if it's like a goal, but do you want any of your books to be made into movies? Because as you're describing that, I was like, that'd be a cool movie scene.
I've gotten close with a few of
Really?
them. It's really hard. I don't think people I get that's actually probably the email I get the most, which is like, why haven't you made this into a movie? And I'm like, because I don't have 4 million bazillion dollars. Like, I don't make those decisions. A producer and a director and like people with money have to decide that they're interested, and then it's a whole process, right? It's
Hmm.
like, are the rights even available? Because a lot of times, studios will just buy the rights to a book and sit on it just in case it blows up, or just in case like it becomes a trend,
Hmm.
right? Like, let's say all of a sudden there was a bunch of like dark gothic mythology stuff coming out. Someone who like was just sitting on the rights to House of Furies might be like, oh, now's the time,
Sure.
right? So that happens a lot, where they'll just buy it for like, they basically like rent it. They basically rent the rights for a certain number of years. Like, it's just
Hmm.
money, right? Like, they just pay you however much. And then once they decide to move forward, then there's like more negotiations, right? In terms of like how much money will I actually make from this, and how much do I want to be part of the script writing process, all that kind of stuff. I would love it. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because the furthest I got, you see how like, oh, I see how this gets away from from people. You see how some book you love gets taken, and when you see it on the screen, you're like, this does not resemble this in any
Yes.
way, shape, or form. What
Yeah.
happened here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I know, right? Because now I've seen kind of how the sausage gets made, and how much like how many executive decisions are happening, how many decisions that don't really feel like they're for the art are being
Mhm.
made, how quickly they'll be like, but what if this character was white? And you're just like, nope. We're done. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's red flag, red flag. So yeah, it's I would like it. I'm obviously open to it, but yeah, it's definitely could be a double-edged sword situation because you start to lose control very, very quickly.
So not that you want to talk about like the ins and out of the industry, but are you like under contract with one specific publisher? Or are you kind of just a free agent and anyone can?
No, it's more every book or series is contracted to a specific
Okay.
publisher, and you work with an editor there. A lot of times in your contract it'll be something like, this can go on pretty much in perpetuity, where it's like my sci-fi publisher, for example, they did both of my sci-fi books. If I want to do another book in a similar genre, similar vein, I have to like give them first crack at
Hmm. Okay.
offering. I don't have to take that deal, but it's kind of a tradition. It's kind of a like a courtesy
Sure.
thing. Like, we did this in the past. You've been responsible for these types of my books in the past. Here's the manuscript. You get to look at it
Hmm.
first. Would you like to buy it or work with me? So that's kind of the only thing you're really on the hook for. But no, I can go. I have probably four different publishers by this
Oh wow.
point. Maybe more. I mean, they're all buying they're all monopolies, so they're all,
Yeah.
there's not a ton of them anymore, but yeah, I've worked with, say Martin McMillan's, HarperCollins, Del Rey, Penguin. So,
That's crazy. God, I still remember the first time I walked into a Barnes and Noble and I saw your name. I was like, I know her.
and now you're like, stop. It's everywhere. Stop.
Do you ever like walk in a bookstore and you're like, oh, that's me? Do you ever? I don't know. I would flex so hard.
More often I'm like, where are they? You
Why isn't this out in the
bastards, why aren't you
front?
yeah, why aren't you stalking them? No, I mean, sometimes I'll go in and see if they want me to sign stuff. I've definitely had them be like, it's not you, and I'm like, here's my government
Yeah.
ID. Yes, it is. But yeah, it's cool. It's never, that's like, that's one of those parts of the jobs. It's always cool. It's always cool when, a book shows up that is now a real physical object.
Yeah.
It's always cool when you get to hear the audio version. It's always cool when you get to announce something. Yeah, there's like tons of parts of the job that are fucking awesome. And it is a great feeling, especially knowing like how much books mean to me,
Hmm.
how much they shaped my life growing up, how this is kind of in many ways feels like the thing I was always meant to do.
Yes.
It's always going to be cool to be like, holy shit, more than 1 million people have bought my
Dude,
books.
when I saw that number, I was like, I can't even imagine. Like,
That's just one book.
I know. Like,
It's just asylum.
that's fucking
Yeah,
crazy. Like,
it
do you let
is.
that like
Yeah.
sink in? Like, I know you talked about this in the beginning where you know, kind of talked about achieving and like, keep on going, but do you ever take the time to just stop and be like, dude, I've accomplished so fucking much. I'm so proud of myself.
I do now. I didn't used to. I used to really be like quasi toxic hustle culture about it,
Hmm.
right? It was like, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
I could always do better, right? Like that kind of nonsense. No, I think about it all the time, especially when you get an email from a student or a teacher or something, and it's like there's nothing is a better feeling than to know for a little while you made that kid's life like
Hmm.
entertaining, right? Or you got them out of a bad place for a little while, or you let them feel comfortable in their own skin for a little while, or open them up to a new genre. Like I have a lot of kids who are like, I never read horror before, now I love it. Like, you know I when I was the last time I went on tour was like pre-COVID, of course, and I was in Mexico, And this mom came up with her kid at the signing and was like, "You are the first book this child ever read. Like, you were the first book this person consumed, and now they love reading, and I can't get them to stop."
Oh, that's amazing.
Like, yeah, you could just like float away,
Yeah.
right? When someone says that to you, because it's like, oh my god, like the world that, I mean, like inevitably they would have had a first book, right? But there is something just so wild and special to know that that was like the thing that got someone started. So no, I think about it all the time, and it also imbues me with a real sense of like responsibility, right?
Mhm.
Like I never want to just put something out that is a waste of paper, right? Like I feel very strongly that even if I'm doing a goofy kids book, right, that there is messaging and thoughtfulness behind it that is like saying
Mhm.
something, even if it's, concealed. I never want to just do something just to do it. There always has to be a sense of responsibility of like, what am I saying here? And do I stand by that?
God, how do you even like keep your mind straight with all that? I think I don't know.
You
I
don't.
was gonna say I'm
You
such an
don't.
overthinker that I think I would never even get a book done. I would just constantly second guess myself. Like after you turn in a book and if it's when it's published, do you ever go back and reread them and you're like, fuck, I should have said this.
All the time. All the time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, especially with your really, like, I mean, I've grown up in front of
Hmm.
people, right? Like my first book came out when I was like 25, 26. I mean, I was a baby. I didn't know anything. Like I read those books and I'm like, I mean, I clearly see why they exist. I see why someone thought I was worth publishing, but there's so much I would
Yeah.
change. There's so much my process now, the way I approach things, night and day, completely
Hmm.
different. And in some ways it's sad because I also feel like I've lost a lot of the sort of just like joy and
Yeah.
curiosity and exploration of that period of
Hmm.
writing, right? Which was just like, I was gonna throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and it was like a blast, right? Now it's much more of a process, and there's obviously still moments of incredible discovery and joy while you're writing. There has to be, right?
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy writing, you should not be
Of
doing
course.
this job. Is it hard a lot of the times? Yes. Does it feel like torture a lot of the times?
Yeah.
Yes. But I think all art in some way should probably have that aspect to it. But there's a lot I would change. I mean, no book is perfect,
Hmm.
truly. No book is perfect. Anyone, anywhere, if someone said that they could find me a perfect book, I would find a problem with it. Even if it's just a typo, right?
Oh,
Like
I see typos all the
people
time.
still make this. Yeah, people make these, right? Like there are mistakes that get made on a technical level, on a plot level. So
Is it even enjoyable for you to read other people's books at this point? Because I feel like you would probably just read and like look at like this, like just different structure. Like you look at it from like a technical like viewpoint.
technique standpoint.
Yeah.
Yes and no. It's funny because yes, in the sense that I'm now much pickier about what books I end up
Hmm.
finishing. I read a lot of like half of a book and then I'm like, I think I see where this is going. But then now when I do find a book that I vibe
Hmm.
with, it is like a transcendent experience, right? Like it's made it harder to find books I really, really love, but it's also made the experience of finding a book that surprises me or that I just like the prose just it works for me. Like it's so exciting. It's so cool. And I'm also looking at it on a technical level. I'm also like, oh fuck, like, oh man, why didn't I think of this,
Yeah.
right? Like there's that aspect, but yeah, it actually has made it with all art, actually, like, TV, movies, like I'm pretty picky about like if I actually sit down and watch a movie all the way through, because I don't know, I'm just more aware now of like my time, and bad art is very hard to consume now. I have a problem, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I feel like everyone's attention span has just gotten like shorter and shorter
And
overall.
I have ADHD, so
Yeah.
it's horrible. It's impossible. Yeah. No, I read a lot of nonfiction also because that to me is different. You know what I mean? It's, are you communicating this information that I need well, or are you telling this historical story well? But yeah, with fiction, it's definitely hard to find things that I like love,
Hmm.
but it's turned up to 11 for sure.
Yeah, I think that would be really hard. So, not to be annoying, but can you name some of the books that you've read recently that have made you feel that transcendent feeling?
Oh, oh boy. Parable of the Sower is incredible. Everyone talks about Handmaid's Tale. Parable of the Sower did it first, and actually, I don't know if it chronologically came out before Handmaid's Tale. Either way, it's better. It's great. Highly, highly, highly recommend, especially for these troubling times we're living in as women and non-binary, and I guess all people. Let's see what else. Oh, Sea of Tranquility. I loved. I almost like don't like saying that because like it was one of Obama's like favorite. Like, everyone knows about this
Yeah.
book, but it fucking slaps. I love it. I love it so much. I read it in like 2 days. I mean, I just that's the thing too, is if I fall in love with a book, I just burn through it. The Terror by, I mean, I almost hesitate to recommend that one because that guy's also really famous, but it's a great book.
If it slaps, it slaps.
It's really good. The Terror, it's great. His writing style is just so, it goes down so smooth. Yeah, I mean, it's I also like my friend Mindy McGinnis has been putting books out almost every year, and everything she does is like just unreal. She's probably, to me, one of the most exciting people working in young adult right now. What did she just put? I haven't read it yet, so don't come for me if it's garbage, but knowing Mindy, that's just like not possible. She's so freaking talented, and also just one of the coolest, scariest people I know. Oh God, what is it
You said
called?
she's
What
the
is it
scariest.
called? Yeah.
Why is she scary?
She lives like in the middle of nowhere in
Oh,
Ohio on this like like this like cool old house, and like she does all of it herself. She's like a million rescue animals and kids, and like I don't know, she's just, if I was in the like if it was a zombie apocalypse, tragically I live very, very far away from her, but I'd be
that's
like,
your girl.
oh, I gotta find Mindy. Yeah, she can just do anything. She's so competent. She's so like, I don't know. She's just got her head screwed on so straight. It's truly incredible. But yeah, her latest is a long stretch of bad days, which again I haven't read yet, but I'm sure is probably
You still
excellent.
co-sign.
Yeah, she's wonderful. So yeah, I mean, and honestly, it's usually more finding an author, like their style. I tend to be very specific about the style I like. So yeah, I have a really hard time with, you know, I don't know, the tense and the POV has to be right. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. I don't know. I don't even know if I know how to read anymore. I like. I'm serious. I have no fucking attention span.
Do I need to send you a bunch of books? I could do
Dude,
that.
yeah, that would be awesome. No, it sucks, and like I hate it because I used to read so much, and I feel like I have no attention span, unfortunately. So
It I hear the same thing from a whole bunch of really smart people all the time, that they just, their attention span has taken such a dive from phones and social media, adult ADHD or whatever, right? Like
it's so
it's
bad.
so hard. And that's why it's like I try to build it into my routine, which is like, you know, I kind of I can't do like TikTok before bed. I have a lot of sleep issues. So reading, like analog reading, is one thing that doesn't seem to like keep me up as much. So yeah, I just try to kind of build it in.
I'll use your term, analog reading. Is that kind of like a dying thing, do you think? I feel like most people are kind of switching more over to like audiobooks and
Um, I don't know. I don't think the numbers actually bear that out. I think, if from what I understand, from what I've seen of the data, like if you read a lot and you read all formats.
yeah.
Because that's what I do. I do audio and I have stuff on my phone and I use analog. So yeah, I don't think so. It's more that there's just like people who read and people who don't,
That's true.
is the data. If you do read, you probably do it in every format.
I need like an actual physical book. I can't listen. I'm way too distracted. And like reading it online, it's the same thing with the attention span. Like I need a fucking book in my hands.
Agree. Yep. I nonfiction, like if I'm doing research for something, I can put that on at like 1.5 speed and just like I just need the
Yeah.
information, right? I just need the I don't, so that's fine. I can do nonfiction audio, but yeah, if I'm doing a fiction book, I almost always have it physically.
Going back to your creative process, I listened to an interview with you, and you were saying that you will like actually take like a really big piece of paper and kind of like plot out everything. Where you said you do like the ending first, and then you just try to figure out the details that are like all in between. Correct?
Yeah, it depends. It also depends, right? Like I do IP writing too, which is like they just hand you an
Oh
outline
yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just start. But yeah, it really do. I usually think of, yeah, either the big idea or the big reveal or the big like, what am I saying? What is the final takeaway, and work backwards from there to see like how I can get there in a smart way. Yeah, I don't do as much like physical paper stuff. I really now only do that if I have to like do a big set piece or a really complicated, like there's a lot of people in the scene and I need to choreograph where everyone's going to go and the timing of that and physical location. Yeah, I just outline a lot more these days. I just sort of just make lists that are increasingly detailed and create longer, and until I can just like in a few pages do a detailed summary of like step by step what's gonna happen. I really don't write without a roadmap anymore. Like I have to know what's coming next, or I tend to get pretty stuck. Yeah, now I'm much I plan a lot more. I outline a lot more, which like if that works for people, great. I know people who don't like doing that. I just have so many deadlines that I can't really just like faff around
Yeah.
trying to find my way. So yeah, I don't tend to start now until I know pretty well what's coming.
Talking about, you know, fleshing out your characters, you mentioned in a different interview that, well, you're into weightlifting, or would you call it
Mm-hmm.
powerlifting?
Either one, weightlifting, and then yeah, more specifically I'm a
Okay.
powerlifter. Yeah.
Yes. So you were talking about how once you started weightlifting and now into powerlifting, I'm probably going to fuck this up, but you said that you were able to basically like expanded your view of how you could like see a character that was like more built and stronger because you could actually like embody that and you could feel their sensations. Is there anything else that you do that helps you to get in like that the character headspace?
Yeah, if it's something really specific, like, I've had to write a lot of books for people who shoot a gun. So I've like gone and shot a
Mm-hmm.
gun because I just wanted to know what it felt
Sure.
like. It wasn't something I particularly enjoyed. It's not my hobby. It's not for me. But like, I just wanted to
Yeah.
know, right? It felt like an important thing to do.
Mhm.
It really, truly, one of my biggest pet peeves is like when you see a training montage in a movie or when you read about one in a book. And I'm just like, this is so unrealistic. This is not how people get stronger. But yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it is research. You just have to, or asking the right people. A lot of times I'll be like, I think I know someone who like does this weird thing, right? Like who has this
Mm-hmm.
hobby that this character has, and I'll ask them. A tip that's really good is like almost every esoteric hobby has a subreddit.
Sure.
So like,
Yes.
go to the source, right? If your person is a bird watcher, like go to the bird watching subreddit. You're gonna see patterns
Yeah.
of behavior emerge, right? Like just spend a few hours going down the rabbit hole of like whatever thing your character does, like that subreddit, because I feel like that's where people just are very very open about their passions and very much themselves and kind of just say for what the real ins and outs of something are. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a lot of that. I'm trying to think if like, yeah, I mean, some of it obviously you just can't, some of it you just can't, some of it you just can't do, and you have to, I've written sci-fi and some of the stuff is like so outside of what our experiences are. You just have to like start logically breaking it down or find some kind of our world comparison that you can draw on. But I also tend to like, I like to use things that I have experience with to add that sense of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare that I don't have something in a character that's like I've either done or a place I've
Mm-hmm.
gone or something I've seen firsthand, because I think people can smell the bullshit off of that stuff pretty fast. So
I agree.
I don't think I always get it right, by the way. I'm just saying that's how I approach it.
No, that's good. These are all questions that I wanted to know. It was like how you, because I wouldn't even like know where to begin, because like I said, the extent of everything I've written has been for like English class and like high school. But when you're actually writing like a published novel, like
Yeah,
pressure's on.
and you ask the right people, and you're working with a team,
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes I'll even just be like, does anyone, hey,
Feeler.
editor, like, do you know someone who does shot put or whatever, right? Like whatever it is, the thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on a young adult book now, and a lot of it is about like survival stuff, and I'm working up the courage to ask one of the like ex alone participants if she'll like consult, because I am the least outdoorsy person
Oh,
in the world.
same.
So but I love survival stories. I have seen every single season of Survivor. I'm obsessed with it. I've seen every single season of Alone. I love that shit. So, but I want to bring someone on to just catch me at my BS, right? I want someone who's like, there's just as much research as you can do. They're always going to bring something extra.
Yeah.
So, but there's also tough sort of, like I've written fantasy books, and you're like, well, I don't fucking know what it feels like to ride on a dragon, but like, what like a horse? I've ridden a horse.
Yeah.
Can't be that different, right? So
That's amazing. Not to like wax poetic about our history, but I'm really happy to hear that you also got a chance to write your romance novel. When you're doing interviews, you're like, I'm writing all these like horror stories, but actually like I love romance novels. And I was like, that's how I know you. Like I still
yep,
remember,
my fan
your
fiction
fan fiction
days.
days.
Yeah,
I wish I
yeah.
still had them.
I'm so glad you don't.
I had like a
So glad that's
shoebox
all gone.
full of like
I'm
notes
sure.
and like all the
I'm
stories and
sure.
everything.
Yeah, I know. I think about what a psychopath I was as a child, and so much of my trajectory makes sense. Yeah, no, I honestly, that's what I'm in edits on my second romance novel right now.
Nice.
But yeah, it is. It's funny. It's just like it's so funny because I was so excited to do it, and then like I'm like, finally, I don't have to write a bunch of dark, sad shit. It's just people falling in love,
Yeah.
and they just love each other, and it's beautiful,
Yeah.
and they get a happy ending. And then every time I get notes back, it's just like, it's kind of dark. It's like, do we need so much of the war stuff? I'm like, yes, because he has PTSD. Okay, he's a real guy. He's got real problems. Yeah, so it's funny. You kind of like can't, you can lead a horse to water, but yeah. But it just also speaks to like, you get in patterns, right, of like, I've done it. You do something for so long, it becomes very difficult to sort of totally reimagine your process, totally take those aspects of yourself out of it. So it's a learning curve. But also like a lot of the romance novels I've read and enjoy are like pretty like tortured, right? Like there's bad stuff that happens in them. There's still a lot of conflict. There's still a lot of turmoil. So I don't know. I don't think they're too dark. I don't think they're too dark.
Good. Stand on it.
I have to.
Yeah.
And it's a people pleaser. It's very hard to do that. It's very hard to say, nope, I disagree. I know this is what's right for the book. I used to cave a lot more. I used to just say, okay, you're right.
I bet that killed you. I feel like that's not even your personality to just be like, yep, you're right.
I've always had a real respect for like expertise.
Sure.
And a lot of times they were right, by the way. I'm not like, there are a lot of times where editors have made me make major changes to books that at first I was like, I hate you.
You're wrong.
It's a rule of sleep on it. You're like, do not respond to this email until you've slept on it. And then tomorrow, when you come back, you're gonna be like, you know what? That kind of makes some good points.
Right.
Yeah. And it's always a compromise, right? There are always things that I'm gonna be like, nope, I won't budge on that. But it is a skill to let someone else tell you that something you've done artistically is incorrect.
Well, yeah, because obviously you put a piece of your soul into it. So I would take that as like a personal attack. If someone's like, no, I'd be like, I fucking wrote this.
Yep. Yeah, and it's like, again, you get better at it. You get better at removing that sort of ego and just saying, this has nothing to do with me. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the product we've created and the holistic experience of this book. So once you start to like sit on it, like let it wash over you, try to think of the greater good, it becomes a lot easier. Of course, immediately you want to be defensive when someone tells you something is wrong with your book, even someone you trust, and that is like working with you, right? Like you also have to remember you're all in it together. You're all, you're all working towards the same goal. But yeah, I used to have a lot harder time standing up to those people because I don't know. I've always had a hard time like trusting my instincts on things. And when someone tells you, hey, I've been doing this a lot longer than you, and this needs to change, I personally find it very difficult to be like, no, me, I know.
Yeah, if you're
Because
not convicted.
yeah, or if you just don't feel your own expertise, if you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel your own like compass that way, it's very easy to roll over for people. And that's something I've had to get a lot better at in my life, is to just be like, no, no, I know that this is right. And now it's my job to convince these people of
Mm-hmm.
why, right? It's not my job to get defensive. It's not my job to be pissed. It's my job to say, you know what? I hear you, but is there a compromise, or can we just do it my way? Let's just do it my way.
That's a great skill to have in your personal life too, I would imagine.
It is. It's made me stand up for myself a lot more and not just like kind of take it. Because I've never had a problem doing that with like strangers, but when when your family or your friends are doing things that you don't love, I find it very hard to say, hey, please stop.
I can relate. Kind of on
Yep.
the topic of taking up space, you posted something recently and I wanted to talk to you about it. You were in your cosplay, you were in your outfit, and you said something about watching a movie, and you said you either started crying or you wanted to start crying when you saw big, strong women on the screen.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you about that because I was like, I wonder why she started crying.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like until I started getting really seriously into weightlifting and clapped on about 20 to 30 pounds of muscle and like competed a little bit, and I've been doing this hobby for like 10 years
Mm-hmm.
now. I don't know, 7 years, 8. I don't think I really like felt correct in my body. Like I just didn't. I realized how, like, when I see pictures of myself when I was like a lot thinner and a lot less muscular, I experience intense body dysmorphia. Like, it doesn't look like me to me because I've dealt with different traumas physically with being attacked in the past and assaulted, and some part of me, I think, was always like, if you can get big enough and strong enough,
You'll be safe.
not only will a lot of the men you don't want to be with stop being attracted to you and stop bothering you, but also like you'll be able to defend yourself. Both of those things, by the way, delusion. But but our brains aren't always telling us the
Yeah.
truth, but we listen anyway. And yeah, so it really was finally like, it just felt good, and it finally was the thing that got me to like exercise all the
Mm-hmm.
time. Like, I hated exercising as a kid. I hated it. I hated in college, just going to the gym, getting on the fucking treadmill for hours at a time, not seeing any result that made me happy, not feeling better about myself, not and that is not to knock people who run. Like, you got to find the thing that gives you your joy, right? Like, that's it, period. And I felt so much sadness and regret that it took me so long to like find this hobby and to feel like, oh my God, like when I pick up 280 pounds just with my bare fucking hands, it's the coolest feeling in the
Yeah.
world. Jesus Christ, it's the coolest feeling in the world. I feel like I could punch God in the face, right? You're just like, it's so invigorating. It's like, it just feels like this is what I was meant to do. And I stopped my trainer one day and I was like, do you know what's the craziest thought I've ever had? I'm the strongest person that has ever existed in my bloodline of women.
Wow.
There is go I dare you, time travelers, put another person, a woman that I'm related to, back all the way back, put her in front of me, I will be stronger than
Mm-hmm.
her. And like, I feel a calling to that. I feel a calling to like be big and strong and not claim that as a masculine trait, but claim it for
Yeah.
myself and for women, because it's absolute horseshit. Like, I outlift a bunch of the dudes in my gym. Period. I just do. And like, I think so many more women would love working out if they got to try stuff like this and felt good about it, and and didn't get the comments and didn't get the like little shady things. Like, I remember I went home a while ago and I was like, yeah, I'm lifting, I'm working out a lot, I'm like getting really strong. And I remember my dad saying, well, don't get too strong. And I was like, say more. Why? What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
What's gonna
Yeah.
happen? What happens if what's too strong? What does that mean? Like, define that. It was just like, it just was like a slap in the face, right? Of like, well, there's a threshold. There's a threshold where a woman should not
Mm.
be a specific amount of strong. And, and I'm one of those, like, you tell me I can't do something, like, forget it. I'm gonna try until I die, right?
Yes.
Like, so I did a Wonder Woman cosplay, and in that movie, it's not a perfect movie, but the opening is showing Themyscira and all the Amazons, and like they actually got like Olympic lifters and like genuinely jacked women, visibly jacked women for that sequence. And you just see them doing their thing. And it's like, it frames them as beautiful and aspirational. Like, look at these women, they're amazing. Not, ugh, she's big, she's bulky, right?
Yeah.
Like, to just see it portrayed that
Mm.
way and to know that that was like one of my biggest passions in life. I was crying, I was a mess. I was like, why don't we get this all the time? Why don't we get this all? Why is this the first superhero movie I've seen where this is the take, right? And no offense, but why is it Wonder Woman? Why doesn't she look like one of these
Mm-hmm.
people,
Yeah.
right? Why doesn't she look, you know, a level of muscular that is off-putting to most straight men, right? Like, who cares? She's Wonder Woman. She do whatever the fuck she wants. She still has to be a model. She still has to be like a size
Yeah.
4. Get out of here. Bullshit.
I mean, not to add any more work on your plate, but it sounds like you might just have a little movie idea on your hands.
Oh, I absolutely have a book that is going to tackle this stuff eventually. It's in the it's in the
Okay,
queue.
good.
But no, it's like it's something that I think it's getting better, but I do think it's one of the last bastions of sort of like so much. I still see women, particularly straight women, feel like they still, even if they work out a lot, are expected to fit into this very narrow set of standards and narrow set of physical standards specifically. And I just hate it. I just hate it because I just know when I see myself like that, I am like, that's not me. Like, I don't even recognize that person
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And I just wonder how many people are out there like, man, I wish I had the like courage and the self-esteem and the self-knowledge. And I'm here to tell you, there are dudes out there, straight dudes, who think it's fucking hot. So like, don't right, like don't think that by getting big and strong and muscular that you are like, oh well, I guess I'll never date again. It's like, well, yeah, you'll never date losers again. But like, there's plenty of guys out there who aren't intimidated by strong women and find them very hot.
That's
So
very true.
yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a pet hobby of mine to spread the good word of like, be as big as you fucking want to be.
Yeah.
Like, let everyone else shut up. Who cares? They don't. They don't. Are they paying your bills? Who cares? Don't listen to them. Not important. You look the way you want to look. You lift the weight you want to lift. And I'll tell you what. If it doesn't feel so fucking good to be lifting more than the dude on the rack next to you, I'll eat a barbell. Like, it's the best feeling in the world. And that's not me being like, ooh, misinjury, ooh, like,
Yeah.
it's just a good feeling because you've been told your whole life that you're weaker than these other
Yeah.
people. It's not true.
I
It's not true.
I'm not gonna lie, I haven't tried doing it, but I can imagine that would feel fucking awesome.
It feels great. It feels great. And I've had, this is a flex, whatever, I'll
Flex
flex.
girl.
I've had multiple girls, young ladies, women, all ages who've started at that gym come up to me privately in the locker room and say, I am starting to do this because you look like such a badass.
That's amazing.
And I want to do that. I want to do what you're doing. I'm like, you're gonna do it. Don't get scared. Don't let any fucking person in your life, man, woman, child, say, stop, you're getting too big, you're looking too whatever. Just do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Well, shit. That could be again. Not trying to add more work onto your plate, but sounds like you could be a bomb ass personal trainer too.
No. I'm too mean. I'm too mean on myself. I would be too mean. Like, it's so funny. My partner and I, like, we work out together, and when they're going for PRs, they're like, okay, just be here. If I start to fail, like, just, like, just encouragement. And I'm like, slap me in the face, scream at me. I literally had a different person that just slapped me before a lift once.
Really?
Because I was just like, I need the adrenaline. I need the fire. I need to be ready to just go to war. Right? It's just so fun. It couldn't be different,
Yeah.
more different in terms of like what makes us feel like we could do something.
Hey,
I'm sure that says a lot about the way I was raised.
oh my god,
But
ain't no fucking way. If you were like slap me, I'd be like, I'm good. You can fucking live 250. I'm not slapping you. You kidding me?
280,
Oh,
please.
pardon. Touche.
No, but no, it's but I'm I'm saying it helps. I know who I can ask
Yeah.
now, but yeah, it's a whole. I just I think the real thesis of, I guess, this whole conversation, right, is just like, if there's something that gets you out of bed, if there's something that you believe in, like, you're gonna have to withstand. You're gonna have to. People are gonna take the swings, and you're gonna have to not go down, right? And that's on your social media, that's on your inbox, that's in your day-to-day life, that's in your family, right? Like,
Right.
I think I've found longevity and success in both of those things because they reinforce each other, right? Of like, this is something that makes you feel better and stronger, and that's fuck everything else.
Amen. Well, no, and also just like taking up space and like standing up for yourself too.
Correct. And saying, I get to publish these books. I have something to say. And you don't have to listen,
Right.
but I get to say it.
Like RuPaul always says, if you're not feeding me, fucking me, or financing
Yes.
me, pay them bitches no mind.
If you ain't paying your bills, that's right.
So.
That's correct. I'm wearing my Laganja sweatshirt.
Nice.
Yes,
I love it.
She's one of my favorite drag queens. But yeah, it's something I believe strongly in, and I think like art is political, so it's just like being a person and physically representing yourself, however that looks. And yeah, it's not easy. None of it's easy.
Right.
None of it's easy to be really who you are, to be really authentic, and to really show up for the person inside of you, instead of just the constant self-abandonment of what other people think, what other people want, what other people perceive.
100%.
It's none of my business.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I think you're fucking awesome. You've always just, I don't know, in my opinion, from like my point of view, you've always known who the fuck you were, and you like never apologized for it.
But that's not true. That's like, really, I know I give off a very confident, dare I say overconfident personality, but there's a lot of hurt inside. I'm like, I don't think you end up who I am doing what I've done with the hobbies I have, looking the way I do, unless like there was a very hurt child inside. And I honor that kid all the time now, but I didn't used to, right? I used to be operating from a lot of fear and pain. And the older I get, the more I'm like, no, it's like that little girl inside, hiding in her room, reading and writing 24 hours a day. Like, that's the person you have to protect, and that's the person you have to show up for.
100%. You've also, on the flip side, you've also always been really, really sensitive and a lot more emotional than I think anyone ever really pegged you for. But I always knew you so well. So I was like, she always comes off and, like really knows who she is. But I'm like, I know that you're really sensitive inside. Like, I know all your emotions because I've seen that side of you.
Yeah, I am a softie, and I denied that for a long time, and I've always found it easier to like show up for other people, right? Like, if someone was getting bullied, if someone's being a dick, like, I could always like intervene for other people, but I could not do it for myself. And yes, and that is like something that's so hard but so crucial, is to just be like, yeah, but what, you can't keep showing up for those people, and you can't be a warrior for those other people if you're not a warrior for yourself. If you're not seeing that little kid inside who needs you so desperately and saying like, okay, you first.
That's so true. Damn. I didn't realize this was going to be a therapy session for both of us.
I keep a really cute little picture of myself on my desk. When I can feel the world encroaching and I can feel the darkness, I look at that little version of myself and I'm like, what does she need right now? And what's going to help her like get through this day?
Inspiring. I should do that.
It's a good technique. I also have a little thing on my desk that says the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. Those are the two things I like keep on my desk for inspiration. So
I like it. Well, I can't believe it's already been an hour and 15 minutes.
I know. I knew we were gonna run long. I was like, we're all buddies. It's gonna go
long. Before I ask you my final question, where can people find you?
Sure.
And do you have anything coming up that you can talk about?
Sure. Oh my gosh, what is coming? So I put out a few books this year. I put out a book for Critical Role called The Nine Eyes of Lucian. I put out a young adult book last year that will be out in paperback soon. The Book of Living Secrets. It's like a kind of Lovecraftian horror for teens. Let's see, I have another romance novel coming out soon-ish. Date to TBA, probably summer-ish, maybe fall. And that one's called Much Ado About Margaret. But yeah, you can find me online at author Roux, AUTHOROUX, on everything. And if there's a question or a comment you need to make, I have an email address listed there. I have a website, madeleine-roux.com. I have some free stories and short work there, and also just like a running list of all the many things I've put out. So
amazing. Well, it's been a joy to follow your career. I'm so proud of you, and I'm glad to hear that you're taking the time to, take care of yourself and also realize how much you fucking accomplished in such a short period of time. It's truly amazing. It's truly amazing. Okay, so my final question. Are you ready?
Yeah.
When are you going to accept Anna's marriage proposal? She said she's been asking you every month for the last 25 years.
Not every month. That's a lie. Liza Minnelli. No, she knows. I am the unmarried person. She is married. So really, when is she going to get a divorce and make an honest woman out of me?
Anna?
That's what I'm wondering. The gauntlet, look, the ball is in her court. Pressure's on. Leave that. No. My husband's wonderful. But yeah, no, and I'm proud of you, man. I mean, this is so cool. I think anytime anyone takes on a project and you're consistent, and that's an accomplishment. You should be proud.
Thanks. I mean, like I said, once I get started, I'm like, do I even know how to carry this conversation and keep it going? I'm not a fucking interviewer, but
well, we went over time.
We did go over time. Clearly. You were saying some great things. So thank you for being so transparent, and thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I love you. I always have, always will.
I love you back. I wish you the greatest success with this.
Oh my God, thank you. Well, and
of course,
I wish you continued success, but without burnout. I wish you balance.
That's the dream. Nope. That's the dream. Thank you. Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better.
Perfect. All right. Well, until next time, everyone out there, stay brilliant.